Rick Baker is one of the most influential voices in Australian venture capital. He co-founded Blackbird, now a household name, back when most people in Australia didn't even know what VC was. In this episode, we go deep on the $250,000 check that almost didn't happen, but turned into a $50 billion unicorn. We also explore how AI is reshaping venture investing, and why Rick's current running coach isn't a person, it's ChatGPT. I'm Jason Hunt, and this is Execs Who Run. Let's dive in. Well, welcome along to the show, Rick Baker. How are we doing?
Really good. Thank you for having me. Excited to talk about running.
Oh, how good, right? There's certainly worse things that we could spend our time talking
Yeah.
about. Speaking of, we always start off the same way and have a chat about the last run that our guests have done. So what was the last run that you did?
Oh, the last one I did was yesterday morning, which was my local favourite run just around Cremorne Point. It's only 5K. It's beautiful. It's always at this time of the year hard to get out of bed, that moment, but that's the hardest bit. Once you're out, it's so good. And then Sunday's run was the sights of Sydney, over the Harbour Bridge, Opera House, Botanic Gardens, and back. That's one of my favourites too.
We're pretty blessed in Sydney with where we can go running, even though my go-to is Centennial Park. Although Centennial Park's nice, but getting along the harbour is...
Come on.
Need some hills.
Hilly where I am. You got to even the Harbour Bridge is a bit hilly.
Yeah, no, it is. My go-to hill is to go and run down into Bronte and up Bronte Hill. I always throw that into my long runs. So I do try and get some hills in there. I like running
a little bit
hills.
of Heartbreak Hill. You get that in every now and again.
So I've never run the Heartbreak Hill. I've never done it. That may change this year.
Good.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yes.
But yeah, there's so many cool places to run that I probably haven't, because I'm a bit of a creature of habit, and Centennial Park seems to do me well.
Yeah.
But seems like you're similar with Cremorne Point, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, we've got a lot to kind of have a chat about today, because you're a pretty interesting guy, and we can obviously talk a fair bit about running and talk a fair bit about, I guess, the cool things that you've done in your career. But I want to go all the way back to, well, maybe let's say like 21-year-old Rick, same age as your oldest child.
Yep.
And you're coming out of university. Where was your head at? What were you going to be doing with your life?
What was I going to be doing? I started doing a commerce degree. I did this great co-op scholarship, which is actually at New South Wales Uni, which has turned out some amazing people have gone through that. The Atlassian founders, Mike and Scott. Nikki, my business partner at Blackbird, also went through co-op, so coincidence there. And there's this great sort of sandwich course where you work, we worked through the holidays, you work 6 months at various places. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't really want to be an accountant. So I went and did a law degree. And then when I finished my law degree, I knew I definitely did not want to be a lawyer. And so I skedaddled over to London and got a job with a little investment bank over there doing M&A in the power sector, and basically became an Excel junkie, doing big models on how to run and finance power plants. And that was fun. Did that for a few years.
That's a pretty random thing to find yourself doing, right? Like it's getting pretty niche when you're running models for power plants.
It was fun. And I was over in London and I learned from just a fabulous Finnish guy, Kimmo, who taught me everything I know about modeling.
Are you still au fait with the wonders of Excel?
Yeah, I love a good spreadsheet. Absolutely.
I love it. And so you spent a fair bit of time overseas and also started a few of your own little companies. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, right in the middle of the dot-com boom in 2000, so a while ago now, I decided to quit my investment banking job and start a software company. I was convinced to do it by my cousin, and so as part of the sort of founding team of a business that did software for real estate agents. And my cousin and others knew a little bit about real estate. I knew a tiny bit about software, and that was about it. We really were, it was an amazing learning experience. So I did that for a number of years, and then really until I got married and kids were on the way, and my wife and I decided to come back to Sydney. And then I started a second business called Right Party Connect. And with my co-founder, we set it up. We were actually sort of taking a business model that she had seen over in the UK and bringing it here, which was using all automated telephony to do debt collection. We did that and sold that business, and then I didn't quite know what to do next.
That sounds like a business that would be you'd create in like 30 minutes with some AI software these days, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So well said. Yeah. But
crazy,
then you have to go
crazy.
and sell the product
Yeah,
and integrate
yeah. And if everyone can make
make
it in
it
30
work.
minutes,
So
then
yes.
yeah, for
But
sure.
absolutely. I mean, that is amazing to think. We would have spent months with a team coding that.
And it would have been like state of the art, right? Like some
Yeah.
automation to do that kind of
Yeah.
stuff would have been
Absolutely.
incredible. Yeah. Wild how far we've come.
Yeah.
Did you see yourself becoming, because it sounds like you turned into a bit of the tech guy, right? Like the guy who'd done commerce and law. Did you see yourself becoming that kind of tech guy in those startups?
I was always the sort of person who could kind of take a business problem and then talk to the software engineers. Like I can write a
Yeah.
little bit of code that's sort of self-taught but not extensively. And so I was that translation. I think nowadays it would be called a product manager.
Mm.
And that term didn't really exist that much there. So at that time, it was more like you're just this person who sort of does everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it
Which
makes
is
sense.
classic early founder stuff, but definitely went through twice the chaos of nothing to something. I think that's important for what I do now.
Oh, for sure. And we'll definitely get to that. So sales off, right party connects. What came next?
Yeah, then I just wasn't quite sure. I actually got headhunted by a recruitment agent, literally out of the blue, and said, there's this job going at MLC, sort of pension fund, superannuation fund, in their private equity team. And I sort of went and met the team and got on really well with the people in the team and ended up joining that team, not quite knowing, kind of knowing that I wanted to, investing was interesting to me. And then that was just a wonderful experience. So I spent 6.5 years there, pretty much learning how to invest in a really well-formed structure with a great investment committee. In fact, some of the members of that investment committee have been my best mentors all the way through what we've done at Blackbird. So it was this wonderful experience I got to do. I started off doing a lot of private equity and venture capital, and then the buyout stuff's not as interesting for me. I obviously had this bent towards the venture capital part and went over to Silicon Valley quite a lot. Ended up actually going and living there for 6 months, where we took the kids when they were little over there. And we managed to invest in these amazing funds in Silicon Valley. Literally, we got lucky. 2008, the financial crisis, we had capital, right person, right time. And we managed to invest in all these amazing Silicon Valley VC firms, Sequoia, Accel, Benchmark, Andreessen. And so my job was pretty much to study these firms and know how they work and their cultures and their investment strategies. And it was just this wonderful learning experience. And came back to Australia, and then I guess it was kind of a bit sort of champing at the bit to be doing what these funds were doing. And we'd done a bit of direct investing alongside these funds. And that was where the serendipity of meeting Nicky, my co-founder at Blackbird, happened around that time. He was running StartMate, the accelerator program here. And we got together and just started talking about what we thought was happening in Australia and how excited we were that I think the main thing that we probably believed and saw that no one else, well, not many saw, was that there were the sort of same kind of founders, same attributes and characteristics of founders here in Australia as there were in Silicon Valley. They didn't have the infrastructure around them to really sort of get, and often the confidence to kind of get businesses started at scale, and lots of them. But we really believed there'd be this cohort of great Aussie companies that would start up. And so that was the very sort of beginning of Blackbird.
I want to ask about probably quite a pivotal point, and the learning that you've just kind of explained obviously has been invaluable for what you're doing now and Blackbird. But joining MLC at the time, there must have been some conflict there, because you've just built 2 businesses, you've been a founder where you've done everything, and you're going to go into this kind of established business, if you will, where it's pretty focused on what you're doing. You even said like very structured was a good thing, but were you apprehensive about making that move?
Yeah, I was apprehensive, and I can remember I think came back after the first week and said to my wife, "Oh, this is tough." Like it was the first time I'd ever worked in a large organization. It hits you when all the, I guess, different kind of things you've got to manage inside a large organization, which I was not really used to. And I can remember getting a slap on the wrist at one point because I we were setting up this new project. It was a new structure for holding the investments, and I took it all the way through and got all the way to the board of MLC to get it approved. And at some point, right towards the end, people started putting up their hands saying I'd missed a key step, and that was that I'd taken it to the risk and compliance team, but I hadn't taken it to the risk and something else team that was like the risk and mitigation team or something. And like I was just like, I've never heard of this team.
What is this? Yeah.
And so it was it was a learning experience as well. But we were very lucky in that private equity team to be. It was like a little island. We had our own investment committee, and we were quite sort of protected from a larger organization. And in fact, that team has gone off and spread out around the ecosystem now. It was a pretty cool sort of group of people and learning experience.
We'll come back to 2012 then. So you meet Nikki, you realize there's this kind of gaping hole of infrastructure in Australia to support the people that you see having the exact same talent as people in Silicon Valley, but just don't have the ability to do what they need to do because of the infrastructure. How were you going to solve that? Like, what were you thinking? What were you putting in place to be able to build that infrastructure or start?
Yeah, well, it really started with with pulling some money together. Actually, as you would imagine, there was almost no venture capital left in Australia, and in fact, the group of companies that were really instrumental and instructive to us were companies like Atlassian and Campaign Monitor and Aconex, Oz4X, Brick Studios, a bunch of others. They were world-class startups at that time. Many of them still are, but none of them had taken Aussie VC, and we just thought this was crazy. And in fact, Accel was the best Aussie investor, and it had come late stage and picked off Atlassian, I think, and Oz4X, and eventually Campaign Monitor, and maybe a couple of others, and it made a lot of money from those investments. Anyway, Nikki and I thought there was this gap in the market, and we could pull together a fund and then start giving capital to these Aussie founders so that they wouldn't need to go over to Silicon Valley to get the money. So that was a great idea. So start off with a fund. The other thing I think we were really quite passionate about was we wanted to be this much more than just the money. It was this club, and we had this founders helping founders kind of mantra where we wanted to bring the community together. We wanted founders to invest in our fund. We wanted those founders to help the new founders that we invested in. That's been a big part of Blackbird DNA all the way through, and try and kickstart and help catalyze the community as well. And that's been great. And the community's just grown beautifully over the last 10 or 15 years. So we decided we wanted to raise a fund, and we thought that would be a great idea. And it proved to be quite a contrarian idea. Not many people believed that you could make money out of Aussie venture at the time. So we had this long, arduous fundraise. We had over 500 meetings. It took us 22 months to raise a $29 million Aussie fund. So a really lit fund. Wow. We have 97 investors in that fund. And so heaps of investors, like 100K here, 100K there, 50K there. And our strategy was really first to go out to anyone we could find in Australia who had made some money out of tech, and we'd go and try and jag a coffee with them. And actually, we formed pretty early. We learned that what we were doing, what we needed to do was not try and convince people that this was a great idea. Like if someone didn't, we had to uncover the believers, not educate people. So if someone didn't believe that Aussie founders could do great things, we knew we had Buckley's and no chance of actually convincing them.
Yeah.
But every now and again, you meet someone, you have a coffee with them, and they're like, yes, I think that too. And a whole bunch of people gave us a bit of money. Yeah, so we got that fund up and running. It's slightly embarrassingly, it's called the 2012 fund, but we didn't actually get it closed till 2013. It's been a good fund.
Putting aside, and we'll obviously talk about the success that Blackbird's had over those 13 years since the fund, but do you think it would be that hard to do now, going out and even getting angel investors, getting 50 grand here, 100K there? Is the environment for, well, I guess the risk appetite of just Australians different now than it was then?
I think there are a few pros and cons, ups and downs, and how they even out, I'm not quite sure. So on the pro side, I think people now believe that Aussie startups can and are world class, can be and are world class, and that you can create the venture scale returns that you need to deliver a good venture capital fund. I think people believe that now, whereas back then, most people didn't actually believe that. So in that sense, easier. In other senses, there is something about being early in a market that was refreshing itself or restarting itself that in a way makes it easier, whereas there are a whole bunch of VC funds out there now. So if another one comes to get started, you need to show something different. And of course, just by starting it, we were different back then. So in that way, maybe it's slightly harder. I'd say right now, today, the hardest thing is that when you're starting a fund, it's usually high net worths who are your main backers, because you've got to create a track record before institutions will start investing. And the high net worths generally in Australia, and New Zealand at the moment are pretty tapped out. They've done a lot of, those that are interested have done a lot of investing into venture over the past few years, and easy to say and understand what a 10-year fund means, that your money's locked up for 10 years. And actually that usually means kind of 12 years. It's hard when you're actually living, people don't actually realize it until they're actually 5 or 6 years in and you don't have a cent back. Your returns might be looking really good. Value of those assets might be looking really good, but you haven't got any money back. And I think there's a whole group of high net worths who would normally back venture who are now just waiting for that money to come back to be able to reinvest more. So in that way, it's a bit of a tough time right now.
You mentioned before seeing the talent and seeing the people in Australia who had the ability to do what you were seeing in Silicon Valley. And that's quite interesting to me as someone who works in search and recruitment. I'm always looking at people and the potential that people have to deliver. And sometimes it's based on what they've done in the past, and sometimes it's trying to look at the potential that they have. What's your philosophy on looking at founders? And take a great example, and they're on the wall behind you there in Canva, and Mel and the team at the time. Like, what did you see in them, or what were you looking at in founders like them that you went, yeah, they're going to make it?
We think a lot about that, obviously. I think it starts with this authentic founder connection to the problem. What we're trying to figure out is this person, do they kind of have an unfair or, an ability to get insights around the problem they're trying to solve that others won't have? And are they truly passionate? Is this their life's work? Is this something that they'll be doing through good and bad times? Will they smash through walls because they are so passionate about this? And I think that is number one, really important. I think secondly is this idea of being really good at articulating their mission. And I've phrased this before, is what we're looking for is sort of missions that are in kind of vivid color and high definition. And somehow when a founder comes in and they've got this problem, and often it's a slightly interesting, maybe slightly problem that's not everyone's thinking about, and they have this really elegant, beautiful solution. And it may not be that it's not even, they haven't started building the product that will solve it, or they're just starting, but you can see this pathway to solving the problem and creating this big business, and it's in this really big market. When that sort of all comes together, we get excited. And we saw that with Mel and Cliff. Like, it was so clear the way they talked about the product they want to build, the way they were going after Adobe and the graphic design ecosystem, which was this kind of complex, multi-tiered thing, fragmented thing. Just Mel, the way she spoke about wanting to democratize design was, with 2020 hindsight, I'm sure, seemed quite obvious. It was definitely exactly what we were looking for when we set out on the Blackbird journey.
Where does your balance sit in terms of really having faith in the person versus having faith in the idea or even the business model, or even if it's the point of the early fundamentals or early revenue? Like, how important is the person to you?
The person's super important. But I think, again, it's the melding together of all that that's really important. It's how they all meld together into one kind of story that is really compelling. So it's the serendipity when the pieces of the puzzles all snap together, and then, you know, it's wonderful. But of course, the people are so important.
I want to talk a little bit about Canva further because it's been such a formative business for your business, right?
Absolutely,
Because
yeah.
you launched in 2013,
2013,
raised the
yeah,
fund, and they were in the first fund, right? And they were
yeah.
pretty early on in their
Was
story.
the second investment we did at Blackbird and the first that I did. In
Yeah.
fact, we
And
Mel and Cliff kindly held open that very first sort of seed angel round in Canva for us so that we could get our fund closed and the investment. That was a
look at that.
250K investment. The best investment
Yeah.
I will ever make in my life.
Yeah, I was going to say it must be one of the most successful investments in Australia venture history.
I think so.
Yeah,
So,
the numbers are phenomenal, and
and what I think actually is special is not necessarily that first 250K, but we went to follow on. You know, we followed on investing in Canva over many years, and we invested, you know, over 250 million Canva over the whole journey. And that
yeah,
it's the ability to do that and continue doubling down on something as it progresses. I mean, I think that's where venture, you know, you get these power law sort of outlier returns in venture.
and
So,
I think it's an interesting thing to dive a little bit deeper on there because looking back on Canva and making that investment in the first place, yeah, like we made an amazing decision there, right? We backed these guys from the beginning, whatnot.
wow.
You probably said the exact same thing at the time about every
About
single
everything.
business you invested in,
Yeah,
right? Like
that's it.
that's what you need to do. What were the things as the business progressed that just gave you more confidence to keep doubling down and going, oh yeah, like we've actually hit on a winner here. Like we thought we had at the start, but we thought everything was, and clearly they weren't. But what was it that kind of
Well,
just kept it going for you?
interestingly enough, Canva, we invested pre-product. It was just an idea
Mhm.
in Mel's mind, the product. And they started building the product, and like almost a year later, they hadn't released the product yet. And I was thinking, oh, damn, my first investment in this new fund is going to be a dud. And then they released the product. And actually, I think one of the wonderful things about Mel in particular is she is very careful and obsessed with that product. And she did not want to release a product until she was really happy with it. And I think that's actually was one of the many things that drove and sparked that early success in Canva. Look, when they got the product out, it was pretty clear pretty quickly that there was something special happening here. The traction from users, and they had no revenue in the early days. It was just user traction. We started getting into the metrics and looking at it, and we saw some pretty special things. So we again, revenues are great, obviously, determiner of progress, but it isn't the only one, and particularly in the very early days where I didn't have revenue. And you know, Canva's mission has always been, we want as many people to use this as possible. We're not about optimizing for pricing and paywalls and revenue. And interestingly, there's still to this day, the focus is on really great free customer product and really great market and customer acquisition rather than trying to really ramp up pricing and things like that. In the early days, we got these great metrics. So obviously number of users, daily active users, monthly active users, and then and then number of designs created per user. And then what we were really interested in was, were these designs actually being used? And at that time, the only way you could use a design, because you couldn't really display it inside Canva the way you can now, was to press a button where you download a PDF. And so we started looking closely at the metric that percentage of designs that were downloaded. And it was up at like around 80% in the early days.
Wow.
And that we thought was really sort of an insightful metric that showed us that people are actually using Canva to do interesting things and things that were useful, because you don't download it unless you're actually going to use it. Things like that we started looking at.
It's been such a cool story, and it's a perfect example of showing that Australian startups can fight it with the rest of the world.
Truly was
they're going
right from the beginning, right? There was these just great examples. I remember early on examples we used to use, like there was this like sheriff's department in some city in the US that were using it to make wanted posters.
Well, it makes the image, the thumbnails that I create for this show. So it's everybody's using it now, I think, and it's
a
amazing.
phenomenon. It's awesome.
I want to look at the flip side. What's the biggest miss or the biggest loss or biggest mistake that you made in the journey?
Our biggest mistakes are not actually the ones we invest in. They're the ones we don't invest in. So we let Airwallex go in the early days because we didn't do fintech. We looked really closely and passed on Go One. That was a mistake. Same with Employment Hero. They're our biggest mistakes. In terms of investments, we're really careful about how much we sort of put in for any one fund, sort of into any one company, as we know that every investment you make can go to zero. And the thing is here, we've really worked hard to design our funds and our strategy to be fault tolerant. We're a power law business in that we know 1 or 2 companies in every portfolio will make the fund. And then hopefully 4 or 5 will do solidly or really well. And then the rest really will make our money back or not, and not make any money back. And so we're really careful to kind of stage the money in a sensible way. And so the losses that we have had haven't destroyed any of our funds. And that's one of the things actually I'm most proud about. We've had lots of losses and none of them have destroyed the funds. That's really...
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
What impact do you think the initial kind of thought, the vision, the strategy that you and Nikki were putting in place around starting to build that infrastructure had on where the environment is now? Because, you were there in the early days.
Yeah.
And do you think that was, do you think the success of someone like a Canva has helped grow the Australian market entirely?
Hugely. I mean, having lighthouse companies is really important, I think. Atlassian, Canva, safety culture, just from our portfolio, but I mentioned the other ones, Airwallex, Go One, beautiful, Employment Hero, etc. You really, I think, you need these inspiring stories. And I think Canva is wonderful. And I think the fact that we have a company with a really excellent culture and that leading our ecosystem at the moment and standing there as the lighthouse, I think that's really great. We know there's been bad behavior, particularly in the US. Of course, there's been some here as well, in the startup ecosystem. But I think to have a lighthouse like Canva is wonderful. And I think we do, we're building an ecosystem here in Australia. It's not Silicon Valley. It's not Israel. It's not Cambridge in the UK. It is Australian and there is an Australian side to it. And I think that's really great. And hopefully we've been a little bit a part of that. I think one of our favorite times each year is the Sunrise Conference, where I first met you.
Yeah, indeed.
Where we, the community comes together and we have a great couple of days sort of sharing stories. It's so important to share the stories of the ecosystem, and that's awesome.
It is. I want to ask about AI because I feel like that's the thing that people should ask about.
Yes.
But also it's going to be an amazing segue to something else we're going to talk about soon.
All right. We haven't been running yet.
Yeah, I know. Patience. I like to just drag the listeners on a little bit sometimes. I want to understand how everything that's happened in AI has really impacted your investment decision making, because it's just the pace of everything must have been insane. But at the same time, you see these businesses that you're like, yeah, that could be $1 billion business overnight. And then the next day it's gone because OpenAI have launched another feature.
Yeah.
How hard has that been over the last 2 or 3 years for you as a VC investor?
So I'd say hard and not hard, as in good and more difficult things. So on the good side, it has just been incredible how fast AI companies have been growing. We love SaaS companies, software as a service companies, and we've been investing in them for a long time. We know them pretty well. And I really see the sort of AI application layer companies as SaaS 2.0. And what's so exciting about them is that SaaS 1.0 was all about just getting data onto the cloud. I mean, back when we started, the cloud was something special. Getting data onto the cloud and then letting lots of people share and collaborate around that data, and then having kind of manual workflows that people could do. And that was amazing at the time. That was great. Companies like Safety Culture sort of grew up around that. Really amazing. Now, but then we went through this period where kind of SaaS got a bit boring, and it was only really making people's jobs like 10% better. It wasn't really changing things. And we kind of got a bit sort of, where's this going? And then when the LLMs kicked in and came out, it was just this resurgence of things you do in the realm of SaaS software. And what you're actually doing now is just doing whole tasks for people. And that is incredibly exciting. We have seen a huge amount of deal flow. I'd say 70-80% of what we do is just basically AI, things that are either enabled by AI, so things you couldn't do without AI, picks and shovels to AI. We kind of love that. We've got a whole bunch of kind of security and sort of efficiency of training models and things like that. And then we've got a few foundational models here in Australia. Phoenix, which was inside Leonardo, which was one of our portfolio companies, which recently got bought by Canva, was a really great example of that. Harrison AI, which is building radiography and medical imaging sort of reading software, awesome example as well. And a bunch of others sort of more, I'd say, specialist models popping up. So we, every time there's a new wave of technology, sort of as an investor in this region, you take a deep breath and wonder whether Australia, New Zealand, we cover New Zealand and love the market over there as well. Australia and New Zealand are going to sort of step up and play the game. And with AI, we absolutely have. It's been really awesome to see. And then harder and we know that we'll invest in 20 AI companies. And again, we need one or two or three of them to really bite. And we know that there are going to be, there's a significant risk that a number of them will be overrun at some point by, as you say, a feature or another company or a change in the way that the models work. So, that's just one of the risks you now need to build into investing.
The pace of change just seems incredible. I was just talking to someone earlier about a videographer, in fact, about AI videos, right? Where he's going, I don't know if I'm going to be doing all this stuff at some point, because it was a year ago pretty much that we're all looking at this Will Smith eating spaghetti video going, yeah, no, we're all good for a little while. Whereas now if you made one, you probably couldn't tell unless you looked really, really hard whether it's Will Smith eating spaghetti or not, right?
I know.
It's incredible where these things are going.
Yeah.
As someone who's plays in this space and enjoys technology, how do you use AI yourself?
I would love to say that I have some magic way of using AI that stun all your listeners, but I use it like everyone else does at the moment. I use it for writing things. It's just so great for summarizing things. I use it for research. Yeah, it's learning. I feel like it's the internet 2.0 in a way, in terms of learning and things, because it used to be we were amazed that you could Google anything and find some information on something, right? And then you'd go and read multiple websites and go down tangents. And now you type it in and you just get it all beautifully laid out for you, and you can go deeper on certain things and other things. It's quite amazing. For us who have got to learn things quickly, you get a new business coming in about an area that you don't know that much about. It's just a godsend. It's incredible how quickly you can learn. So again, for the democratization of knowledge, I think it's the next step up on that. So I use it for that. We use Granola as a note taker, and it's just great. And it's changed the way I do meetings, actually, because I love typing and writing and making sure I get everything down and things. And now I can just sit back and talk to people and look at them and don't need to be typing. Yeah, it took me a while actually to not type, because in Granola you can still type your own notes. So I'm like, okay, no, I don't need to do this.
I love note taking. I love note taking apps because I hate note taking. I've never took notes at universities. Take pretty limited notes when I'm doing interviews. Now I don't have to. Now it's all there for me, which is.
And when we're starting to use it more and more in our organization, and more sort of organization-wide things, it's not quite there yet for us in terms of so we have 130 active companies in the portfolio, and we're constantly getting information from them. And the ability, when you want to know this company, what does it do and how much revenue does it have and how much it grown last month and what was the last funding round size, and someone like Nicky, that's in his brain. He kind of knows almost every one of those, but me, not at all. So to have this AI brain that we can ask those questions, we're not quite there, because I had an example the other day where I was trying to get info out and it was just completely wrong. So everything needs checking still, but we're getting better at having that holy grail of a brain of all of our business information, just being able to question it and get it to write reports and due diligence questionnaires and things like that. We still got to check that and do quite a lot of editing, but it's getting there.
There's one more use case that I know you use it for, and this is my beautiful segue that was very well planned.
I have a running coach.
And we're going to start talking about your running coach that
Yes.
is Mr. ChatGPT.
It is
Most of our
ChatGPT.
listeners should be familiar with it. How did you start doing this? Why was this something that you started doing?
So I was setting out I signed up for the Sydney Half Marathon, which was just a few months ago. And I was sitting next to Tim Doyle, founder of Eucalyptus. And he's a very good runner. We were talking about doing the half marathon. I said, I got to get a running plan, get going and get cracking. And he was just like, use ChatGPT, do it. Then I got back to the office and he was like, yes, do it. Started doing it. I had did a whole load of prompts, all my goals, bit of running history, that I didn't want to get injured. This is my main thing. And we can talk about it. I've had various kind of just niggling, annoying running injuries over time. So that was my main thing. And then came up with a set of prompts that actually worked and got it to just generate plans for me. And I could just see they weren't quite right. And then iterated and then got something that was good. And then away I went.
Have you tried any of the tools that are, Runner is obviously the most well-known one.
No.
Did you try any of them?
I haven't. I just stuck with my friend ChatGPT because it's become quite a ritual in that I upload then my Strava in details, and it's amazing. You have these watches and it can measures everything, right? Upload it, then it's so positive. It's probably far too positive. I should be so positive, but maybe I like that positive reinforcement. Good run. This was good. Come on, your cadence isn't quite fast enough. And actually, one of the things that it's been best at is giving me a little slap on the wrist when I run a bit too hard, because I'm told that I really don't want to get injured. Yeah, and I'm 52 now, so I'm getting a bit old. It tells me it's a good run, but heart rate was a bit high. We weren't aiming for that heart rate. I could see there are a few hills. Let's slow down. And it's actually been forcing me to slow down and not run as hard, which
that's quite good.
I think is,
and particularly when I think a common thing people will see with AI is, and you see it's very nice to you and often is very encouraging of what you're doing and all that. But the fact that it's listening to your prompt and going, no, you need to be listening to me.
Well, the other funny one I had the other day is I was deciding whether my next run would be a full marathon, and I decided not to do it, at least for this year. But I was putting in some times because it's got all my times right and ages. I was like, what do you reckon? Could I do 4 hours? I know. I said, could I do 4 hours 15? And I was like, yeah. I think you can do that. Well, we've got this thing. We'll set it out. I think we can do this. And here's the pace. And here's this and this. And I said, how about 4 hours? And came back and went, that might be a bit tough. I was like, oh well, that's good.
I love it. That's so cool. All right, we might come back and talk about that a little bit more because I think it's fascinating. I've played around a fair bit with it myself.
And it's quite enjoyable. It's like a nice little moment to sort of sit and analyze. And the other funny thing is I'm always quite polite and I treat it as my friend. And my kids look at it and go, Dad, you don't need to be polite to ChatGPT. I'm like, no, I want to be polite.
One day, yeah. I want to go back and kind of hear about how running started for you in the first place.
Yeah, I was never really great at running at school, and we did school cross countries and things, and I would train hard and come middle of the pack. And I reckon in my 30s, I started kind of just running. And I don't really know why I started, but I just started running. We had a nice little park with a bike track near us. I just got into a routine of running sort of every maybe second day or so. I can remember for the first time wanting to actually improve my times and things. And it is amazing how you do go, once you start running regularly from not really running at all, it's really quite awesome the progress you make, maybe in the third, fourth week or something. And I kind of got, I think, a bit caught by that. I'm quite competitive with myself. And when I saw myself getting better, I was enjoying that. Then I decided I wanted to do a half marathon. That was the first time I'd ever followed like a training plan and actually made myself, not just got out of bed when I wanted to, but made myself get out of bed to run.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the training leading up to an event. Like I don't know, it feels like you're doing something, like and achieving something. And with the lead up to this sort of big event. So I really enjoyed that. I did a couple of half marathons and then I decided I wanted to do a full marathon. And I signed up for the one in Queenstown because I thought that I love Queenstown, such a beautiful place. And someone told me it was flat. Trained and got about maybe a month out and then did something to my hip. And I don't quite know what it was. It was never really diagnosed, but I went to a few physios. But the first one kind of just laughed at me and said, "You're just a classic middle-aged runner who's run too hard." And, it was just classic. And so I didn't actually get to do that marathon. And my friends who signed up with me all cursed me because apparently that has quite a gnarly hill at the end, which they all hated.
Because you'd sold them the false narrative that it was flat as well. Yeah.
Anyway, then I took a year off and sort of got better, and then I did the Sydney one.
It's such a cool sport where you do have so many elements of it particularly when you're starting out, and you get addicted to the growth and the development and getting better, and then you get past the point of like, all right, I just want to get to a point where I feel comfortable running, and now you're like, all right, I need to make this a challenge in whatever way it might be, and it just finds new ways to kind of suck you in and keep you going, right?
And then I did a stint of low heart rate running, which I really enjoyed. Trying to stay at max aerobic, which was kind of fun. You got to walk up the hills sometimes, which is quite embarrassing. Especially when friends run past you and you're walking up the hills.
Did you find that it made a difference?
I did it for a decent amount of time, and you do these maximum aerobic fitness runs, and you run sort of 5K, trying to just very sort of strictly trying to stay at a certain heart rate, and you see how long it takes you each kilometer. And I did get better over time. Not as much as I hoped to, actually, but I did get a little bit better.
ChatGPT hasn't recommended that kind of training.
No, but it does focus quite a lot on my heart rate and trying to keep my heart rate at certain levels. That has been good. Although when I get in a race, it all goes out the window.
It's allowed to. That's part of racing, right? How does running fit in? Like, how do you now see it as part of your life? You're obviously a pretty busy guy, and you've always had busy jobs. What is it? What does running kind of mean?
The one thing is sort of running and training for an event and enjoying that process. And then the other thing now is I feel just so much better during the day if I've been for a run. Like it's just, I still get the endorphins kick in after the run. I was traveling a little while ago and traveling with my wife and her sister and partner, and we'd meet for breakfast at this hotel, included breakfast. And I went for a run one day and I arrived and they looked at me and went, "You're so perky." I was just like this sort of bouncy rabbit who'd done my run and was all happy and smiley. And I think that's actually now sort of a big part of it as well. I just feel great after going for a run. And then I've added in the gym only recently, actually, about a year ago. I do 2 days a week now. I'm doing a sort of functional fitness and things and strength.
What was the kind of motivator for that?
Started off, my wife was doing it and she's like, "Come on, you're doing it too." So that was a good start. But I do think it's actually helped my running a lot, and I probably should have been doing it, years ago. And also I think as you sort of start to get a little older, that, doing some strength training is super important, right? Everything I read is that, muscle wastage is a real thing.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
So I enjoy that too now. So I do that twice a week, and I try and run 3 times a week, and that's a nice routine for me.
What is going to be the next race for you then?
So I'm doing the City Surf, which you're going to do.
Yep.
You're going to do the City Surf.
Yeah. So I am planning on running a world record for the fastest marathon in a suit at Sydney Marathon.
Wow. Fastest in a suit. I love this. A suit defined as a business suit.
But it's like full 3-piece suit, so waistcoat as well. and a tie.
Woolen? Is it got to be?
Sorry?
Is it got to be a woolen suit? Are you made of wool, or is there some script
So
about that?
I'm not too sure. We're making out of pure Australian wool.
Yeah,
And it's going to be nice and thin and hopefully decent thermoregulation. But city to surf, hopefully it's a bit of a primer, I guess, and a test run for the actual run, which should be 3 weeks later. So
well,
yeah, that's
um,
why I'll be running
yeah.
city to surf this year.
So that'll be my next event, and then I haven't quite decided what's next.
Okay.
Not
running Sydney Marathon. Oh, you said you weren't running a marathon this year.
No, I'm not going to do a marathon this year. I was toying with it and talking to my running coach about it, but we decided together that we would wait until next year.
I love this. I love the talking about it as we, because I do a bit of coaching myself, and obviously I have a coach too, and yeah, it's always talking about we. Like,
I think it's a bit scary. I was reading some article out the other day about these people getting sucked into these friendships with AI and sort of destroying their lives. So
yeah, and you're like, I'm already there. It's already got me. I love it. I love it. Do you now look, or do you ask any of your founders whether or not they're runners too?
good
Is it now an
question.
important?
No, I don't actually.
Should you?
Yeah, maybe that's my
Yeah.
new go-to question. We have a few
Yeah.
really good runners at Blackbird, and we do enjoy chatting about running. It's funny. My wife's like, "Oh, running. That's like, what a boring thing to talk about." I'm like, no, that's good to talk about.
It's only boring if you're not a runner, right? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so there's a really good bunch of runners at Blackbird.
Have you seen the running culture change? Because obviously you're in and around probably quite a young culture with a lot of startups a lot of the time, and a slightly different side of the corporate culture, I guess, than maybe what you would have seen back in the day. But have you seen running kind of come into that culture a little bit more over the last few years as it's just boomed?
I reckon it has got much more popular, and I know it's
Yeah.
I know it's boomed from seeing all the events that's like amazing, sold out. Seriously, sold out apparently. Like marathon was sold out, the Melbourne Marathon sold out, the half marathon sold out. It's amazing. Yes, definitely seeing it a lot more, and I'm seeing it a lot in startups. It's a good question. I haven't really thought that much about it, but I would say,
Well, Becco's startup striders would be a good example of it. Probably is
exactly
out there a wee bit, right?
Striders, exactly.
Yeah. For people who haven't heard the previous episode, you can go listen to the one with Michael Batko, who's the CEO of Startmate, and has a running group called Startup Striders, which is gone. There's thousands of them now, I think, across Australia and New Zealand, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I like running by myself, so
You're not going and joining. I'm sure they'd love to see you down there at Centennial Park Run and go and have a chat afterwards.
Yeah.
You might be mobbed a little bit. And I want to ask about the AI coaching stuff,
yeah.
because you're someone who's obviously playing around with it and is a somewhat of an expert just around all this kind of tech and AI stuff in general. The Strava acquisition of Runner has obviously been massive news. Do you see that just continuing to be a massive thing for the sport of running, and do you see it being beneficial or not?
Yeah, I do see it as a massive thing, and I really do see it as beneficial, because I never had a human coach. I was just not. I don't know, I didn't see myself as good enough or needing a coach, or serious enough, perhaps is the right word. But I have really benefited from putting everything into ChatGPT and getting it to direct me on daily, deciding what run I'm going to do next, and sort of altering the program as I go, depending on the running that I've been doing. And then, as I said before, I think the biggest thing is, for me at least, is not running too hard and injuring myself. And I've got through the last sort of maybe 6 months or so since I've been using ChatGPT without an injury. And that's like the last few years I'd be probably having some niggle along the way.
I want to ask the question around, and this is getting back to the seeing how much your bond with AI has become. I think a lot of people end up getting a human coach because they have the sense of accountability to that person.
Yeah.
Have you developed that sense of accountability to your AI
Yeah,
coach?
I think I have, which is, again,
Fascinating.
a little scary. But yeah, I think it's more. Because it's sort of this habit forming that I sit down after the run and I'll upload the stats and then see it come through and then plan the next run usually. And it's that little moment of, is a nice little interaction that I quite enjoy. And so I kind of want to do that. And so, yeah. And then once
Great job, Rick.
once you set the next run, you can't not do it. That you didn't do it.
Have you ever had that situation where you've like missed a run and it's known and it said something about it?
No, I don't think it's been quite as obvious as that. But I have definitely missed runs, and we've spoken about missing the run. The other slightly annoying thing it does is it still thinks that somehow that it gets stuck on US time, and I'm sometimes gets the wrong days. It gets mixed up that we're a day ahead here in Australia. So I've reminded it many times that I'm in Australia.
So it just shows that even with the insane growth, some simple things aren't always that easy to get nailed. Right? Yeah. No, I love it. Well, we're going to move into the kind of final part of our conversation. And what I always get is I try and get some free advice from all my guests. So what I would like is your one top piece of advice on life, your one piece on leadership, one on running, and one on, you can choose if it's investment or founders or startups, whatever you think is the best piece of advice there.
Well, life. I am a really big believer of kind of making your own luck and just creating, putting yourself in the right place at the right time, such that sort of serendipity happens. And then a lot of what we do at Blackbird in investing, which I think goes to life, is just sort of, if you can have a prepared mind, or you can have some experience or some pattern matching learning that you've had that helps you select those moments to go and do things, to activities, investments, jobs, whatever it is. That's how you sort of spark great things in life. So I think that, there you go, there's my life one, business one. I think I've come back to storytelling and being good at articulating narratives and reasons and like business is so much about convincing other people that your idea is a good idea and following you and then helping you do that idea, and leadership as well, right? And the ability to clearly articulate what you want to do and the pathway that you want to get there, and then create some sort of sense of excitement and maybe even fun and joy in the moment too, such that people want to join you on that journey. I think that is just so important, and all the sort of technical skills and everything else is obviously a foundational layer, but the really great people who succeed in business, I think, are just excellent at telling stories and bringing people along on their journey.
Is there a top storyteller in terms of maybe one of the founders that have come through your business that you've really seen that in?
I'd say the founder of Zoox, Tim Kentley Clay, his driverless taxi business, which was sold to Amazon, came in to pitch Nikki and me at a time when driverless cars were just this dream. I think there was this DARPA contest and Google had a team and Stanford had a team. And he pitched to us this vision of what a driverless taxi would be. And then very cleverly pitched to us the pathway that he thought he could get there. And one of them, which was, well, in the early days, it was pre this, but the first one of the early things he managed to do was to spin out that Stanford team and get them to come and work on him and join him on that vision. And again, that's a great example of that vision bringing great people. And that was the point at which we backed him and led the first seed round in Zoox, when he was able to get that team to join him on that mission.
Your running advice?
Oh, my running advice. Gosh, I'm an amateur runner, so don't run too much, otherwise you get injured.
Honestly, one of the best pieces of advice is, right? And I don't think people listen to that one.
Sometimes less is more.
Most of the time.
Long time to learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
I was a runner. I had a bad runner. I went for a friend, just ran past me. I've got to run 15K 3 times in the next 3 days. I think that was when I did my hip. And then and then I might have run 20Ks on the Saturday and just had it at the end of it.
No, I think that's a great piece of advice. And then the final one is, investing or startups or whatever makes the most
Investing,
sense there.
startups. Investing, I think diversification is just so important, particularly in startups. Lots of angel investors come and talk to me and want to know how to angel invest. And my view is if you think you can do it with one or two investments in companies, you're probably either you'll get incredibly lucky or you're kidding yourself. This is really something you got to do 10 or 20 of. And then you have enough shots on goal to be comfortable that you're going to get some standout winners that pay for the ones that don't work out. But it's an incredible and very fulfilling business to be in and be around startups and be around people who are dreaming the next thing's just the best.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on
Pleasure.
and having a bit of a chat today.
It's
It's
very
been,
fun.
it's always good to talk about running and
Yeah.
cool to hear about kind of your career and Blackbird and Canva and whatnot. Pretty cool stories in there obviously for you, but for the Australian VC landscape, I think
Thank you. Yeah.
has you and the team to thank to some extent. You played your part in it, that's for sure. So yeah, great to hear your journey.
Yeah, fantastic. And I look forward to this world record.
Yeah, so do I. Amazing. Hey, thank you very much, Rick.
Cheers. Bye.
And that is it for today's episode of Execs Who Run. I hope you enjoyed Rick's story as much as I did. A few things. So you obviously heard that I am trying to get the world record for the fastest marathon in a suit. Now, doing it for a great cause, we have Movember on board, and we want to try and raise as much money as we can to support men's health. So if you would like to donate, there will be a link in the show notes. I'd love for your support. If this episode sparked something in you, please give it a like, follow us on whatever platform you're on, and share it with a friend. I'd really appreciate that. But until next time, get out running, and we will see you soon.